Hello again, Internet. Well, let's come down to this. Today's lesson is how to fail without trying. Now you might be wondering yourself, why would I need to learn that lesson? Well, there are many reasons that you might want to know about how to fail without trying. The first of which is, what if you've never failed and you have to for some reason? What if you need to fail in order to succeed at something? What if there's a requirement for you to fail at something in order for you to be successful at it, to reach your goal, obtain your mark, move on to the next stage, whatever it might be? Now, I know that sounds crazy. If I have to fail at something in order to succeed, then don't I have to succeed at something in order to reach that level of success? No. It is required that you fail in order for you to succeed. What does that mean? Well, all right, so for example, if you have to, doesn't matter what, choose any task, paint a wall horribly, like you're supposed to paint it well, but you actually have to not paint it well. You have to fail to paint it well. You have to leave bubbles or spots, stains, whatever, uncovered parts, anything you can imagine. Why would you need to do that? Any number of reasons. You might be painting a set for a movie, and you want to be the next senior set designer for that company because the current one is moving on to something else after this movie's done. But there's 3 candidates. You're only one of them. One of them you know. 2 of them you don't. And your task is to paint a wall for a movie set room, and you have to fail to paint it successfully so that it looks a certain way, so that it has a certain je ne sais quoi about it that meets the director's vision. Has to be slightly imperfect. Right? The task of the painter was to paint it perfectly, and the painter failed. That's part of the script. Therefore, you have to paint that wall in a way that demonstrates that you have failed to paint that wall properly. Does that mean that you will succeed at painting that wall improperly? Or does that mean that you will fail to paint the wall properly, and therefore you will attain the level of success? That's your choice on how to view it. But when the mission is fail to paint this wall properly, then yours is not to paint the wall properly by failing to do so. Yours is to fail to paint the wall properly. Now you could say, well, I could just do nothing. That's true. You would fail to paint the wall properly by doing nothing. You would also fail to paint the wall properly by just starting and not finishing it, or doing most of the job and not finishing it, or doing any number of degrees of doing the job and not doing it, or by doing something completely different. Maybe you burn the wall, or a little piece of it. Maybe you spill something on it that stains it. It can't be painted over properly without sandblasting or something. There's a number of ways you can achieve the goal. And failing to achieve the goal is sometimes very often a very important part of the road to success. Now I know this sounds crazy. Whoever fail, well, I've just given you an example. It's certainly not the only example I could give you. If you're a creative marketer, you no doubt are aware of the power of failure. If you're building a list of prospects, do you want to build a list of prospects that will convert successfully? Usually you do. How do you do that? Well, what if you set your list to fail to bring in non-converting prospects? Meaning, and you're going to say, this sounds like jury-rigging. It's not. What if you make it so that your list deselects anybody that shows disinterest? Automatically deselects them. How do you do that? Well, obviously the answer is mechanisms, filters, right? Well, how do you do that? Well, opt-in lists, opt-out lists, ever heard of those? Right. So, say you're marketing, whatever it might be, a video game. And in order for people to try your video game, they have to just sign up to your website, and all you ask is their email address. No name, phone number, no nothing. Just their email. Or you let them sign in with a Google or a Facebook login, right? So they don't have to actually enter their email into your system, or so they think. Well then, what if they open the first screen, they see it doesn't look interesting to them, and they don't want to play? What should you do? Should you, A, continue to offer them more goodies that might entice them and try to convert them? Or B, automatically deselect them and go find another prospect? Well, if you chose A, then you've chosen a task that has an increased rate of a probability of failure, unless you are able to completely turn the tables around on the very next thing that happens. For example, if you can detect their interest when they open your first screen by whether or not they take an action within a certain amount of seconds, like clicking something, tapping something, whatever, and they don't do it, then the very next thing that happens, if they skip that, should wow them, completely blow them away, so that they absolutely cannot resist the temptation to join, to take the next step, to be more engaged with your game. And conversely, if you sit there as a gamer playing your game, if the person sits there and plays your game, does not take immediate action after seeing the first or second wow thing, once you've burnt two bridges, you're not likely to be able to recover if you burn a third. So now you're on your last leg. Now you can tell me, but Yasha, you always talk about how you need many touch points in order to convert somebody. Yes, that is true. And I also say that it depends on the product or service. And some products or services, like certain video games, require instant conversion. Why? Because they're driven much more by impulses, literally biometric impulses, than certain other more intellectual products or services that require more time to gestate, consider, decide, and act upon. For example, if joining a gaming community is an easy process, it just requires you to click enter, and it logs you in with your Google login, your Facebook login, or your Microsoft login, or whatever, then there's no real challenge in that, right? And so what that means is the process is very quick. And when the process is very quick, you don't have much time for many touch points, and you're more likely going to lose somebody who shows immediate disinterest than you are to regain them. Why? Because you're very much going to program them in the head of thinking, well, I didn't like this thing, and then they tried to shove something else in front of my face to try to convince me. That's the way they will perceive it. Because remember, it doesn't matter what you're trying to project as a brand. It matters how it's perceived by the recipients, the target audience. And when it comes to video games, it's extremely finicky. So, in fact, one way to succeed more when you fail on your approach is not to offer them a second chance. Is to deny them a second chance, to say, oh, you rejected that. We no longer want you here. Thank you for playing. And it can be ironic or non-ironic. You can pretend you can have a character that is, appears to be sad about it, or a character that looks boldly and says, we reject you. Thanks for playing, but no thanks. We don't want you around here, kind of thing. And that will draw in more people. They will come just to see that. And then they'll restart the game because they want to get in. And you can make it a challenge for them to get back in. And that will build for them a bond that they don't get on most video games that are kissing up to everybody, trying to make them, oh, play my game. Now, of course, I'm just talking about video games here. This could be for any product or service that has similar traits. Video games just happen to be a very useful example because of the interactive nature of the product. But there's plenty of other interactive products where you could do the same thing. You could be a street caller for a circus, right? Standing on the side of the road, asking people to go to the circus. And if they say no, you could be all, well, check out this other thing you could do. Or you could be like, yeah, all right, thanks, but no thanks, we don't want you around here. And see which one works better. You'll be surprised how much the rejection will work. Sometimes better than the approval. Anyway, that is why it is important to know how to fail without even really trying. And no, I'm not kidding about it. Try it. Let me know what you think. Happy marketing.